Welcome to the Business Exit Secret Formula podcast. We're thrilled to support business owners on their journey to exit strong, proud and ready. It's Josie, and as always, I have the pleasure of being joined by David Fisher, a business exit advisor and mentor with over 4 decades of experience in business, property and construction. Today's episode is about what buyers want, the surprising truth about sellable businesses. If you've been considering selling your business, or if you're simply curious about what makes a business truly shine in the eyes of a buyer, this episode is just for you.
It's great to be here, Josie, and this topic means so much to me, and it's often very misunderstood. There's much more sellable businesses than just strong profits on paper, and we're going to dive deeper today, going past the numbers.
Let's start with the basics, David. What's the first thing buyers are eager to find when evaluating a business?
Buyers really want certainty and assurance. There is an investment will be keep bringing value, even after the deal is done. So they're looking for the long term. They're buying today and looking 5 years in advance. Yes, they are looking at the financials, but the financials are something that you're looking backwards. They're looking forward for the vision. What systems have you got? If you don't have systems in place and they see a lot of potential, they will obviously price it according. So the multiple will reflect on that. Now, if the people are going to leave, the same thing, that multiple will come down as well. So if the systems aren't there, the people aren't there, the predictability isn't there, is it? So here's some interesting things that buyers sometimes choose to walk away from, even if the business is very profitable. Depends on the business owner. Now, there are so many businesses today that totally depend on that business owner. And that's why, unfortunately, 80% of businesses don't sell every year. So are you going to be one of those 80%? Now, out of that, there's another 90% that what happens to the other 10%? They have to go and really start working on their business as well to become part of that 20%. After all, they're looking to invest in something that can operate without you, without their involvement. So if you're the business, you walk out the door, then there's no business. And so they're not looking for you unless you want to sell yourself to the business and then you run the business working for someone else.
It's not just about the amount of money you make. It's also about the way you make it and whether others can replicate that success.
Exactly. And that's why so many business owners have this great shock. They expect their businesses to be worth a fortune and then get very disappointed. We hear this every day. My business is worth $2.5 million. And they get an offer of 600,000 and go, why is that? We're just working on these multiples, the accountant told me. Today, there's a lot of options. There's people looking, funders, all sorts of people like that are going through business by business, selecting them. So when you look at the multiple of 80% that don't sell, they're still good businesses.
Let's take a closer look at what truly influences sellability. Could you share the 5 hidden drivers that many owners tend to overlook?
Absolutely. Here's what buyers consider. From a buyer's perspective, they're looking at transferable value. Transferable value, what it means is that you as the current business owner, that whole value can be transferred across. So they want to take that value and multiply it. If they can't multiply it, they're not interested. They want a reliable system. Look at your operations, sales systems, delivery processes. Are they well documented, consistent? Or do you have nothing in place? Does the buyer have to walk away or reduce the multiple? So all of a sudden, we've gone from a 2.2 say, 3 business to $1 million business. The other part is the quality of earnings. Everyone's looking at something over a 5-year period, and the economy has an impact, yes, 100%. Sometimes they go up and down, but all of a sudden, in the last year, you're spiking those earnings because you've put all your resources into it. We're going to encourage our sellers to do this, but from the buyer's perspective, they get suspicious. It's a fact of life. We have to look at leaving a little money on the table as well. For example, if you suddenly grew it by 10, 20%, that's fine. But if suddenly you start growing it by 50%, they're going to get very suspicious. The other part is the growth potential. We're talking about growth now. If there's no room left, they're not going to buy it. It is simple as that. So if you're having these great multiples and all of a sudden you're doing it, I suggest you hang on to that business. Look at getting a partner where you can step back. If you're growing it by 50%, I wouldn't sell it. The other part is the risk potential challenges can arise. Now, there's all sorts of things. For example, let's start with, there could be a legal case against a customer, might be suing you for something. There could be a supplier's risk. The list goes on, but it's out there. Especially today with AI, they're all high-risk situations. So is your business going to be eaten up by AI? This is a big risk that everyone's looking at, because the potential buyer is going, if I'm buying something today and it's gone tomorrow, and then you have to go and look at, so why is all of a sudden these businesses on the market that haven't been on the market before? So everything's sellable, don't get me wrong. Even the 80% that aren't selling are still sellable with a few sort of creative ways of doing it. But it might be more of an asset sale than a multiple sale. When I say multiple sale, I'm using the multiple of your EBITDA, and then multiply it by 2, 3, 4, 5 times what a nice 4 is a nice multiple. These are all things the buyer is looking at. Remember what the buyer is looking for and be prepared.
Let's unpack these a bit. For instance, could you share a story about transferable value?
Sure. It's a complicated process, but let's just break it down. Let's just do a real simple model here, right? So we had a business owner. They had a consulting company, very renowned. He was the face of it. Everyone wanted him to do their work. Here we are again with a business dependent on one person. Very good, profitable, fantastic business, but it wasn't sellable because when he did step back, everyone could see and notice that the sales stepped back as well, which means that the profit stepped back. So some buyers, they just look at that and they go, well, do I just lower the offer? But most walk away because they've just worked out that, hey, this business is all centered around that business owner, and he probably had that business, a great business that was centered around him, and he was a very knowledgeable person. But people are buying something that's going to continue into the future, not the past. But let's have a look at the other perspective. I had another client who took a different approach. They trained their team, like they really, really invested in their team. So for years and years, they would bring in other coaches, they would train their managers. And now they've got a manager in place who basically is the CEO of their company. So they're running the everyday. So they don't need to. That only just pops in once a month, and at a higher board level, he's all his business. It's exactly what a buyer is looking for. So of course, this business, right, sold for a premium multiple. So I can't tell you the numbers, but the numbers were big because the next buyer, he was going to come in and it's all ready to go. It's because he just looked, what was that business owner? He was just turning up for 4 hours a month. And the guy thought, I can turn up for 4 hours a month and do exactly what. So that's a good telltale sign of when buyers see that you could just say, I'm a lazy business owner. And they go, that's the person I'm looking for.
Yeah. And there's some emotional attachments as well, isn't there? Let's dive into the emotional aspect. What makes it common for owners to overlook red flags?
I've been in business since 1987, about 40 years. So in my world, I was in construction, starting 1987 by myself. That wasn't really a sellable business. So when I moved on, I closed the door. From experience, that's what I did. The next time, I climbed over the fence and went into the commercial sector and went into what I call a real business with a partner, or landed with several partners, and we had 5 businesses in that. Totally different model. That business was sellable. I sold out after 6 years, and it still operates today. That's exciting. So when you go and look at all of that, that's where we've all got that sort of experience. So we can see those blind spots. We can walk into your business and ask questions. Sometimes people don't like those questions, but we are trying to do it in a kind and a gentle way, but we have to ask those questions because we're here honestly to help you. So from a buyer's perspective, you really have to try a little bit of emotional attachment behind. Have someone hold your hand through that process. It's not easy. Normally, you would have a lawyer if you were standing in front of a judge or a barrister. I would suggest that you're dealing with multiples of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, that for the small price of having an advisor at hand, that you utilize those services, because those emotional times is exactly what the buyer's looking at. He's going to use your weakest point, and either going to walk away from a good deal, or you're not going to sign the contract because you get emotionally attached. You don't know where you're going to go. You throw your hands up and you ask for more, but you're just putting it off. You're putting off the process of moving forward. That's why we call our business exit and beyond, because we have to look at the beyond. But if we can't let go from those emotions, we're going to have lots of problems. And unfortunately, we don't want to see you in that 80%.
If you're not proactive, buyers are likely to uncover those weaknesses on their own, typically during due diligence.
The best thing you can do is begin very early. And, as we discussed before, from an outside perspective. So someone that's been in business, someone that's been down the line, someone that's helped a whole lot of other people in that type of realm as well. So find someone, and this is exactly what we do, and we look at the feedback, like I say before, that's kind and a supportive manner, because it is a journey. You probably spent, say, hypothetically, 20 years in this business. It's like your baby, and you don't want to let it go. So we've become grandparents, and we totally understand the same principle of that. We don't want to let go either. And so when we need someone to support us, find a support partner as you go on that journey.
Let's go into the details. It's important to understand what takes place during due diligence and to identify the deal breakers that buyers are on the lookout for.
Well, due diligence, like any due diligence, is a vital part of assuring what you buy, which in this case is a business, is in more than great shape, but it's in really good shape. A good business or a great business, but you're going to have a fantastic business. Now, if it's in good shape, it's probably got potential, but it's not going to get the best deals, right? So buyers are eager to look at all the numbers. They will find out very quickly if it is in great shape. For example, they will look at your financial statements and your tax records. Now remember, all of these things are past. Financial statements and tax records are the past. So they're looking what potential they have in the future. Then, of course, they're looking at customer contracts and agreements. Same thing. They're present and will affect the future. Same thing with employee contracts. They're current, and some people have been there for a long time. Are they the ideal people within this business? And if you do have to amend your employment with someone, have you got the right contracts in place? You don't want to get sued. Do you have all your licenses in place? They're obviously in construction, there's a lot of licenses. And then if you don't comply with those, there's a lot of other things that go on in that realm. And there's obviously money sitting on the table there. And systems and processes. I know we go on and on and on about systems and processes, but like I say, someone's not buying a job, they're buying a business. So if you don't have system and processes, like I say, use a product like Asana. It's really great. The other thing, which can pop up, and lots of people don't tell us this little story, is some lawsuits. And they go, oh, that was years ago. It was unsettled. Unsettled is a risk. If it hasn't had a closure, it is a risk. It has to come up or be resolved. The best thing to do is resolve it today. If you've got unpaid taxes, and it happens, don't get me wrong. So talk to the ATO or whoever your services are in different countries and get that sorted out. They have payment plans, they have different things like that or whatever it may be, but just clean up that stuff. So, surprising fact though, a lot of things don't just derail due to the numbers. It comes back to buying a business, not buying someone else. For example, lack of documentation. We've talked about risks, surprises. No one wants surprises. What happens when there's a surprise? It goes down. It's the same. The price is going to go down, or if the surprise is too bad, they're going to land up walking out the door and they're gone.
Yeah, absolutely. So transparency and preparation make all the difference.
More than you can demonstrate your business is squeaky clean. It has to be so clean, like you've mopped the floors 1,000 times, right? And you've lifted everything from underneath the rug and you've just checked it. Because the buyers will go through it. They know, they'll sniff it out if there's something going on. So we want high multiples. We want high multiples. We don't want your business to be one of those 80% of businesses that don't sell. That's our whole mission, is that your business will sell.
Let's give listeners actionable takeaways. What are some steps they can start taking today to make their business more appealing and sellable?
Here's a couple of quick ones. Documentation. Don't put it in a Google Doc. It needs to be live. We use Asana. I don't see, some people might use Monday or do whatever. If you're doing a system, stick with whatever you're doing. But if you're not doing any system, we have worked out that Asana, with all its AI and related things, and how it integrates with all your system. You're not shutting down your Microsoft products, you're not shutting down your Google products, you're not shutting down all of these things. You are implementing, and just think of it as a dashboard. On a plane, it's a big dashboard and you're plugging everything in, you start the motors and you control it from the cockpit. Asana is the cockpit and you're the pilot running it. So just think of that in that way. So if you jump out of the cockpit, then the potential buyer jumps in the cockpit and he can see all the gauges and everything going, and they're cranked up and they're moving ready for that plane to take off. That is what they're looking for. Number two, don't hesitate to, sort of delegate your tasks. So if you've been the very dependent business owner, it is time to, I would call it like a little bit of an identity shift. Today, we can get AI chatbots and agents. You might need a little help. It's a complicated process, but once it's put in place. But the other way you can do it is from your existing team. They might be into that type of thing. Give them the resources, give them the time, give them the capacity. But I would reach out, because it's such a moving target at the moment, to people that specialize in that realm, and then build out from that. But utilize your team, AI, software, automation, workflows. Now, if you look at your customer base, do you have a handful of customers and one day they close their business and don't come back? Or is it diversified? Instead of 20 customers, you've got 3,000 from different realms. That's diversification. So you've probably heard of that, same thing in shares, you diversify, it's exactly the same. So if they see a weak link and there's not a stable flow of customers and your supply chain, if you've got a product and all of a sudden you can't get it because you can't get the steel or whatever it is from a certain source, or the prices goes up by 25%, and then all of a sudden you're knocked out because your competitor can. So another thing, ensure your financials clean, and super clean. The other part of being clean is being accurate. So go through it, double check, triple check, get someone else to look at it. You know, like for me, I couldn't stand looking at the records. If you needed to, get one accountant to go and audit the other accountant, or whatever you need to do, I recommend you do that. And you'll be quite surprised. I'm not saying the accountant's wrong, but sometimes a few things get missed or someone looks at it from a different perspective. Look at those records. Another area to look at is obviously legal compliance. There can be some gaps in the system. And legal compliance can even be insurances. So you might be providing a certain product under a certain company, or perhaps you have several, and you're not covered, like limited liability or insurances. You might get caught out because your insurances only cover for one area, but you're providing a service in another. Sometimes it needs to be broken up into different company processes. You go under one head company, but you've got different companies. There's lots to get into before you put it on the market. It's going to be soul destroying. All of a sudden someone else comes along and exposes all these things. I can assure you from experience that is not pleasant. The most important thing to do is start early. So what's the best time to start? Now. So ideally the best time would have been to start 10 years if you want to sell your business tomorrow, but if you haven't started, you mightn't be able to sell your business tomorrow for the multiple that you wanted. Let's start the process now.
Absolutely love those. Fantastic. So even if you're not quite ready to sell, these steps can really help make your business stronger, more enjoyable to manage. We love the fantastic questions from our community. Here's one that stands out. Is it ever too late to make my business sellable?
Never too late to begin, like I just said before. But the sooner you get started, the more choices you will have. So as we were talking before, these things take time. So even the smallest changes can obviously lead to a big difference, but we don't want small changes. We want big changes. That's why we're here. That's why we're listening to this podcast, because we want big changes. We want multiples, not 2 times, 4 times. We can get 5 times, but at least aim for 4. No, don't sort of compromise because we're looking for big differences. But that takes time.
Right. Here's another myth. If my business is profitable, it'll sell easily.
It's good to be profitable. 100%, because if it's not profitable, they'll all walk in the other way. However, business owners, they are looking at, as we were talking before, they're still looking at sustainability. They're looking at the risk for the future, not the past. Is it capable of growing without you? So we use the example of that consultant who was a great guy, very knowledgeable guy, but when he left, what happened? The business was part of that 80%, unfortunately, right? Yeah. So great business while he was in it. So, but it was still too dependent on the business. So it was profitable business, very profitable, but he walked out the door and there was no business.
David, I appreciate your insights. If you're a business owner considering an exit, download our free exit clarity assessment for step-by-step guidance. You can book a consultation call with David at businessexitbeyond.com.
Remember, exit strong, proud, ready. Start preparing today and you'll thank yourself tomorrow.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, share and join us next time for more practical strategies on building a business that's ready for anything. So we'll see you next time. Bye for now.